Welcome. To make the information easier to follow, I've divided this presentation into two parts. Part 1 explores the social engineering behind the scam, how trust was established, why the interactions felt convincing, and how the scam gradually unfolded. Part 2 examines the fake LinkedIn profiles used in the scam and shares practical tips for recognizing suspicious accounts and protecting yourself online. Whether you're an active LinkedIn user or simply want to better understand how modern social engineering works, I hope these videos provide practical insights that help you recognize warning signs and stay safe online. Before we begin, a quick note. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. My goal is simply to share what happened, explain the tactics that were used, and help others recognize similar situations. For months, I talked to someone who appeared to be a successful professional on LinkedIn. He warned me about scammers. He taught me about investing, checked on my health, and became what I thought was a genuine friend. But none of it was real. What made this experience so dangerous wasn't that it happened quickly, it was that it happened slowly. Before I tell the story, I want to acknowledge something. Putting this presentation together wasn't easy. Revisiting these conversations brought back a lot of memories. If you've experienced something similar, please be gentle with yourself. I also want to extend compassion beyond the victims. The person whose photos were stolen did nothing wrong. And while those responsible for these scams must be held accountable, some individuals involved in these operations may themselves be victims of exploitation. The purpose of this video is not to shame anyone. It is to help protect others. Many people assume scams happen only on obscure websites or suspicious social media accounts. But scammers go where trust already exists. That's why LinkedIn has become such an attractive target. These profiles are becoming increasingly sophisticated. The tactics are psychological, not technical, and anyone can be targeted. The goal of this presentation is simple: to help you recognize warning signs before significant harm occurs. Over the next two videos, we'll take a closer look at how this scam unfolded. In part 1, we'll focus on the psychological tactics scammers use, how they build trust and emotional dependence, gradually probe for financial information, and create pressure and urgency. In part 2, we'll examine the fake LinkedIn profiles used in the scam, discuss ways to verify identities, and share practical steps you can take to protect yourself and others. This is the story of how it happened. One of the biggest misconceptions about scams is that they happen quickly. This one didn't. It unfolded over months. The connection request arrived in May. I accepted it in August. Trust building began in September. Crypto education started in October. Pressure around retirement funds appeared in November. And by December, the trap was fully visible. This wasn't a sprint, it was a long game. In May of 2025, I received a connection request. The profile looked completely legitimate: professional photograph, credible work history, nothing obviously suspicious. I didn't accept it until several months later because LinkedIn wasn't something I checked often. After I accepted the connection, the person immediately reached out. The conversation began with professional topics: work, leadership, process improvement, the kinds of conversations you would expect on LinkedIn. Then came compliments about my skills and experience. At the time, it felt professional. Looking back, it was the first hook. A common tactic is to open with flattery because people naturally lower their guard when they feel recognized and appreciated. This next part is almost unbelievable. The person actually warned me about scammers. He described fake profiles, social engineering, investment fraud. He sounded informed and concerned. At the time, it made him seem trustworthy. Why would a scammer warn someone about scams? The answer is simple because it lowers your defenses. If someone positions themselves as the person protecting you from danger, you become less likely to see them as the danger. About a month into our conversations, cryptocurrency entered the discussion, not as a sales pitch, not as an investment opportunity, but as a topic, something interesting to learn about. He described risks, he talked about fake projects, he explained how people lose money. Everything sounded reasonable, everything sounded educational. What I didn't realize was that he was slowly guiding the conversation toward the very thing he wanted me to eventually participate in. He even shared a story about supposedly losing $50,000 in a crypto scam himself. It sounded personal, authentic, relatable. But what was really happening was something called inoculation. By presenting himself as a former victim, he was creating the impression that we were on the same side. The lesson here is important. Someone describing a scam accurately doesn't mean they are trustworthy. Sometimes it's part of the script. By October, the education became more structured. He patiently walked me through trading platforms, wallets, transactions, security practices. Everything was explained step by step. The process felt legitimate because much of the information itself was legitimate. That's what makes these scams effective. The scam isn't built entirely on lies. It's built on a mixture of truth and deception. Then he introduced an additional website. At the time, it seemed like part of the process. Looking back, it was a significant warning sign. My first investment was small, and I made money. That result felt validating. It made everything else seem credible. But early profits are often intentional. They are designed to build confidence. The goal is not to take a few $100s. The goal is to encourage much larger investments later. What feels like success can actually be bait. At the same time the investment discussions were happening, something else was happening too. The relationship itself was deepening. Conversations expanded beyond investing. We talk about technology, artificial intelligence, the future, life. The tone became increasingly personal. The connection began to feel genuine. Then came language about friendship, trust, special connections, shared understanding. Looking back, the pattern becomes obvious. But when you've spent months talking to someone, it doesn't feel obvious at all. This tactic is often called love bombing. It doesn't have to be romantic. The goal is emotional dependence. Once someone feels deeply connected, questioning the relationship becomes much harder. After one successful trading session, the compliments intensified. He praised my intelligence, my judgment, my discipline, my ability to learn. The flattery wasn't random, it served a purpose. People naturally want to live up to positive expectations. If someone repeatedly tells you that you are smart, capable, and insightful, you're more likely to make decisions that reinforce that identity. Then came an interesting pattern. He would encourage larger investments, but immediately follow that encouragement by saying the decision was entirely mine. On the surface, that sounds respectful. In reality, it creates the illusion of independence while maintaining influence. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as false autonomy. You feel like you're making your own choice, but the environment has been carefully designed to steer you in a particular direction. Eventually, the conversations became more specific. One day, he asked me about my investment portfolio and how much capital I had available. That question made me uncomfortable. At the time, I couldn't fully explain why. Now I can. It wasn't investment advice, it was reconnaissance. The goal wasn't to help me manage money, the goal was to determine how much money might be available. When I didn't provide the information he wanted, something interesting happened. The topic disappeared. No pressure, no follow up, no argument, just a return to normal conversation. That wasn't accidental. It allowed suspicion to fade. Manipulation often advances in stages: push, pause, reconnect, then push again. Several days later, the conversation shifted toward retirement savings, specifically my 401k. After learning approximately how much was there, he immediately began discussing ways to access those funds. The larger the available assets, the larger the potential target. When I expressed concerns, he reinforced his role as the expert, the teacher, the mentor, the guide. The message was subtle but powerful. Trust me, I know what I'm doing and I will help you succeed. Be careful anytime someone positions themselves as the only person capable of helping you achieve a financial goal. When I explained that I couldn't follow the proposed investment plan, he framed it as a problem he would solve. Notice the shift. A financial boundary became an obstacle, and obstacles are meant to be overcome. Healthy advisors respect boundaries. Manipulators look for ways around them. At one point, I challenged him directly. I asked whether he would really make the same decision if he were in my position. He never actually answered. Instead, he reframed the conversation and then immediately shifted into expressions of care and concern, advice about my health, encouragement, friendliness. Pressure followed by warmth. And then came urgency. Opportunity won't wait. The market is moving and time is limited. These phrases are common because urgency reduces analysis. The faster someone wants you to move, the less time you have to think. After the retirement fund discussion stalled, he suddenly became less available. Messages slowed, and there was a story about work problems and project issues, and then silence. 9 days later, he returned, and after the first meaningful question wasn't about life, or friendship, or how I was doing, it was about capital. Was my money ready? That moment revealed the true purpose of the relationship. The silence had created emotional distance. The return was designed to feel meaningful. At first, I was hesitant. Eventually, after repeated encouragement and persistent follow up, I invested more. Later, when I attempted to withdraw funds, everything changed. The supportive mentor disappeared. Suddenly, there were reasons why I couldn't access my money. New requirements, new explanations, new obstacles. When I asked for help, the story was rewritten. I was told the problem was my fault, that I had misunderstood, that I had pushed forward despite warnings. But none of that was true. This is a classic manipulation tactic called gaslighting. Reality itself is rewritten. Eventually, I returned to something I had felt many times throughout the experience: discomfort. That feeling had appeared repeatedly when finances were discussed, when retirement funds were targeted, when pressure increased. Every time the discomfort was pointing towards something important. The moment I finally trusted that feeling and acted on it was the moment the scam ended. And that may be the most important lesson in this entire story. The discomfort you feel is data. What to do if you think you're being targeted? First, stop all transactions immediately. Do not send any additional money in the hope of recovering funds you've already lost or because you're told it's necessary to complete the process or unlock your funds. Second, stop engaging with the scammer. Avoid lengthy confrontations. You are unlikely to receive a confession, and arguing rarely changes the outcome. Third, report it. Report the profile to LinkedIn. File reports with the FTC and FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. If you've transferred money, contact your bank or financial institution as soon as possible. If this has happened to you, you are not alone, and support is available. Finally, tell someone you trust. Scams often thrive in silence and isolation. Talking about what happened can help you get support, and it may prevent someone else from becoming a victim. Whether you're watching because you've experienced something similar or simply want to be prepared, I'd like to leave you with three simple reminders. First, trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore that feeling. Second, slow down when someone creates a sense of urgency. Scammers often rely on pressure to keep people from thinking clearly. And finally, never feel pressured to make financial decisions or share personal financial information. Sometimes your mind recognizes that something isn't right before you can explain why. Listen to that feeling. That discomfort may be the first sign that something deserves a closer look. Thank you for watching part one of this two-part series. If you found this presentation helpful, I hope you will consider sharing it with someone who may benefit from it. Increasing awareness is one of the most effective ways we can help prevent these scams. In part two, we'll take a closer look at fake LinkedIn profiles, how they are created, the warning signs they reveal, and how to verify identities, and practical steps you can take to protect yourself and others. I invite you to continue with part two. The link is available in the description below, and you can also scan the QR code on this slide. Thank you for watching and stay safe.